Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an all-new On the Mark TV radio from Westfield Community Programming, 89.5 FM WSKB, and our media partners at Agawam Media and Southwick Community Television. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach, and today, as many people are going back to school, we decided to devote one program for high school juniors and seniors and their parents and grandparents about getting into college. Some of you will decide that you want to go to college, and many people do, either on the community college level, the trade school level, or a four-year academic institution. And getting in and getting involved is the key to that education. So this hour we'll devote to getting into college. My first guest is Joe Latimer, who's a guidance counselor at my alma mater, Northfield Mount Hermon School. And Northfield Mount Hermon is an independent private school located on the border between Massachusetts, Vermont, and New Hampshire. And when I went to school there, about 96% of my classmates went on to college. And our preparatory program to get into college started in our sophomore year. Good morning, Joe. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here with you and the Western Massachusetts community that are tuned in to our time together.
So, first of all, Joe, in terms of Northfield Mount Hermon, how many students do you advise every year who go on to college or higher education?
Typically, there are about 160 some odd juniors in the class that we launched them in the process second semester of that year. While they're launching into the process, we're supporting up to 200 seniors and postgraduates that are in the middle or finalizing their way through the process. Typically, it's May 1 of a student's senior year by which they enroll at college. So it's certainly a juggling act, helping the juniors get started that second semester while we're, supporting the seniors and postgraduates who are finding their way to the end of the race.
So, if parents and grandparents and kids are thinking about college, should they start looking at potential schools before their junior year?
It doesn't hurt when you're on a road trip, family vacation somewhere, to understand where there's a local college and to simply do a drive-by. Get out of the car, walk around campus, see what that space feels like, maybe go into the admissions office and grab some brochures. But it's this idea that they're just simply trying to understand themselves in different contexts. So, you could walk around Amherst College and get a sense of what that feels like, then go visit Hampshire College and get a different sense of what that is like. You could visit UMass Amherst, and so on and so forth. You don't have to go very far. Just walk around and see what that space feels like for you. And then when you launch into the process, you have a better sense of large, small, medium, urban, suburban, rural, and your school counselor, college counselor can help then develop a list of colleges based on those variables that are attractive to you as you step foot on those spaces.
If you don't know what you want to major in and you're looking at a college, how do you choose? I know I wanted to go to school in theater, so it was pretty easy to figure out where the good theater schools were. But what if you totally don't know, but you want a college experience? How do you as a guidance counselor help them hone down their choices?
50% of students who end up at college change their minds. And so it is a thing that what you think you want to do at the age of 16 and 17 will change by the time you show up at college and you're exposed to disciplines you've never been exposed to before. And so, you think about the 5 subject areas in high school that are taught, along with art, visual arts, health, wellness, fitness, so on and so forth. That's very limited exposure to disciplines that are actually out there at colleges and universities. So you show up at a school, not all of a sudden you thought you wanted to major in business, but this particular course or professor outside of that topic has inspired you, and now all of a sudden you're like, I think I'm going to go in this direction. The other thing that's possible at most schools, unless you're studying engineering, there's a nuance there. You can major double, right? You go to college to major in something. And there are students who will say, I'm going to double major, I'm going to major minor, I'm going to major double minor. So there's plenty of things to pick up along the way that allow you to add that to your portfolio as you navigate college. And so we want students to show up with an open mind, knowing that if they never change their minds in terms of what they're going to study, beautiful. But if they do change their mind, then what is the mechanism by which to change my major? Some of it is just administrative. Other programs like computer science, if you don't get admitted to computer science, nursing, physical therapy, pharmacy right out of high school, the chances of you internally transferring to that program is difficult.
Okay, so you're in your junior year, and maybe the summer before, you've looked at a few schools, and your guidance counselor has recommended a few schools. What do you have to do to prepare to apply?
Well, the first thing that we recommend students, right, is to make sure that you're vetting those schools by way of, visiting that college campus, listening to an information session, going out on tour. Perhaps the tour guide has nothing to do with what you're interested in studying. Ask them if they can put you in touch with a student or an alumna that is doing something that you're interested in doing at and beyond college. You can't get to that college because of COVID. Now there's virtual programming available for students. These are live programs, these are recorded sessions. And so you don't have to get on the road, go out on the road to visit these places. You can listen to these sessions right from the comfort of your bedroom, your living room. There are college fairs that you can attend. I know that there's one in Western Massachusetts in the fall, where students walk up and down the aisles and meet with admissions officers and get information. And then it's this idea where you got to stay organized around, okay, I'm interested in 10 schools right now. What are their deadlines? Do they offer financial aid? What kind of financial aid do they offer? Do they have scholarships internally? Do I have to apply for those scholarships? Or am I automatically considered? What does my school counselor say about far reach, possible, and likely, right? Can I expect to be admitted? Can I expect to not be admitted? I need to have a balanced list of colleges and universities so that I have, right, places that are options for me after this process is over. And you're thinking about, okay, what do they require for me to submit as an applicant to these schools? And it's, you're going to be, it's going to be your high school transcript. It's going to be your, let's say, your fall mid-year report. It's going to be 2 teacher recommendations, a recommendation from a school counselor. Maybe if you had a full-time job, or you've worked with a local professor over some research, who's a clergy person who might also recommend you to college. You're asking them to support your candidacy by writing something for you and working with your school counselor to get that out. So you got to stay organized. You got to understand where I'm applying. What are those deadlines? What are the requirements? Is it accessible to me? Is it inaccessible because it's highly selective? And just continue to work with your school counselor. That is key, to continue to understand what you need to be doing throughout the process, which I said typically ends on May 1. That's the college enrollment date. There are financial aid forms for families to complete, and there was a debacle this past year around the FAFSA, and so we suspect that maybe that those challenges won't remain. We will see, but those forms have to get worked on. They've got to get submitted on time. And then I'll end by saying, there's a bunch of different ways to apply to college, and you could look these up online. Early decision 1, early decision 2, early action, restricted early action, regular decision, priority decision, rolling admission, and finally, test policies. We know that there are some colleges and universities that are well known to us that are now requiring tests. And there are those that are saying you can submit tests or not submit tests if you'd like. That spreadsheet, that organized piece of paper needs to have, are tests required? If so, which ones? And if tests are optional, if so, which ones? So testing is still a thing. And thankfully, I'm thankful that up to 80% of colleges remain test optional.
If you're applying, let's say you're one of 10,000 people applying to a college that's going to take 200 people for their freshman class, what do you do to stand out?
Well, you've got to work with your school counselor to ensure that the common application, which is accepted by over 1,000 colleges and universities, right? You fill out the common app once, and then you send it to where you're applying. When you tell the Common App where you're applying, it's going to put in front of you the questions that those colleges have for you. And so those go out also with your common application. And so what are you saying about yourself? How are you putting your best foot forward? Have you had someone review your Common App to make sure that there are no grammatical mistakes, that visually it looks appealing? You've got this college essay that you have to write up to 650 words. Have you thought a great deal about what you're saying? Have you had someone look over it to make sure that, again, it is the best piece of writing that you could put together? And how have you dedicated yourself to your academic priorities? We know that the most important thing that you submit when you apply to college is your high school transcript. Mark, when we were younger, it was the idea that your junior year was your most important year, and that still is something that students talk about. The year that you're in high school is your most important year. It doesn't mean that you're navigating it in a perfect way. It's hard to be perfect between the ages of 14 and 18. But what you're doing is you are doing your best to be the best version of yourself, knowing that grades and your profile, your academic profile, the rigor associated with your courses are what admissions officers are going to spend a great time understanding. So a kid can't walk into my office and say, "Hey, Mr. Latimer, I got a 4.0. I'm going to get into, name of school." It's not the GPA. It's what is behind the GPA.
Okay,
And
Joe,
so,
we've got to take a quick break to acknowledge the underwriters here that make this program possible. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach, and we'll return after these messages, so don't go away.
Support for community radio on WSKB is provided by Betts Plumbing and Heating Supply Company, an independent, family-owned wholesaler serving Westfield for over 50 years, specializing in plumbing, heating, and industrial piping supplies. On the web at bettsplumbing.com or at 14 Coleman Avenue in Westfield.
Join me, Tina Gorman, each week from 6 to 8 a.m. for Wake Up Wednesday, when my guests and I discuss health, wellness, and lifestyle reimagined.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to On the Mark, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you've missed a part of today's program, or you want to watch it again, or share it with your friends, it's archived on YouTube under WSKB Community Radio. This hour, we are focusing on getting into college. We are talking right now with Northfield Mount Hermon School Guidance Counselor Joe Latimer, who's offering advice to parents and grandparents and students about how best to get that application done and into school. Joe, if you're a student in the performing arts or you want to get into a film school or specialty, they often require an audition video or tape. How do you recommend people best represent themselves on video to get include with an application?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And so it is important that students, first and foremost, understand what colleges and universities are asking their students to submit. You want to submit what they're asking for, so pay attention to those details. For example, if they're saying something that is 5 minutes or less, don't submit something that's 7 minutes or less. If they're saying that they want something, by a video, don't, submit something that is not a video. Students should meet with members of their art department at school to understand how they have supported students in the past who are interested in organizing and putting together, submitting a portfolio. Lean into those faculty members that inevitably would have worked with students previous to you showing up and asking, and understanding how they and you can use the equipment at school, to make this happen. Leverage those relationships and make sure that you're submitting these documents on time, these portfolios on time. And Mark, there are some schools that actually allow you to submit a 2-minute video, and you're not applying to a visual or performing arts program. Brown University, for example, allows students to submit as part of their application a 2-minute video. And I have students that go to the website to understand what those might look like from previous admitted students to Brown. I wouldn't do that, because then you think you have to do what they've done. Try to just be your true, authentic self when you are trying to represent yourself as an applicant to college. Dig deep down in terms of who you are and what you're all about, your worldview and perspective, and put that down on paper. And that's the best that you can do when you're thinking about representing yourself as an applicant to college.
When we were applying to colleges, you often had an interview with a member of the admissions program as part of the application process. Does that still exist?
Typically, for some small colleges and universities, admissions interviews, optional, are a thing. And I encourage students to go online to understand if a college, university does offer admissions interviews and virtual is a thing, and to go ahead and to schedule those and to have those half-hour conversations. Make sure you get the contact information of the person that you interviewed with and send a thank you note afterwards. And there are some colleges that say, don't reach out to us for the interview, we'll reach out to you if we're interested in having that conversation. And typically it's an alumna that lives in the area that might visit the college counseling office at Northfield Mount Hermon and spend half a day interviewing those students that applied to that school.
And if you're going to a college fair or you have the opportunity to interview, how do you advise students to put their best foot forward? In the corporate world, you'd say the elevator speech. How do you describe yourself, let's say, in 90 seconds? And how do you present yourself to make yourself stand out?
Thank you. That's another great question. I think the best thing to do is to schedule an admissions interview after you've completed your common application, after you've written your personal statement, and after you've written the supplements for that school. Remember, I told you that when you tell the Common App where you're applying, that those colleges are going to put their respective questions in front of you to answer. And then you schedule an interview, and before that interview, you read your Common App from beginning to end over and over again. You look at your personal statement and you remind yourself of that story that you've written about yourself. And then you focus in on what questions those colleges have asked you and how you answered them. And all of your answers to those questions are going to live within all of those documents. There's nothing else you need to worry about, because that Common App is a representation of who you are. And those interviews are meant to understand who you are.
If you're interested in a school, for example, that's not a liberal arts or a four-year college, but something like if you're an aviation person, you want to go to Embry-Riddle, which is a aviation school, or you want to go to the Culinary Institute of America and learn to cook, is the application process different than it might be to go to Harvard or Yale or UMass?
Yeah. So the tricky thing about applying to college, and this is where that organization really is key, is to understand the nuances between each and every school. And so, yes, you might be applying to, say, an engineering program that might ask you to have a particular background in math and science than, say, someone who's applying to, a major in English. And those recommendations might be asking for a different set of recommendations as well. And the selectivity amongst all those schools are different too. And so it is important to stay organized around what is required versus optional, of these different kinds of schools that you're looking at, and that will determine how you navigate the process with each and every one of them. It's not unforeseen to someone to apply to the Culinary Institute of America while they also apply to a liberal arts college, while they also apply to a local university and a community college nearby, and to navigate the expectations around all of those different types of schools in a way that is timely and, again, meeting their expectations.
There are a lot of parents and grandparents out there who will say, how can I afford to send my child to college? I understand that community colleges in Massachusetts are now tuition free, and some other programs. My alma mater, the Yale School of Drama, is tuition free now. But if finances are going to be an obstacle to admission, how do you recommend somebody apply to school, to what the school of their choice and hope for financial aid or support, or apply to a school like a community college and then try to transfer?
Sure. I love the fact that the community college system in Massachusetts is tuition free. What a great down payment to support our young people. And there is the option to be able to transfer after 2 years seamlessly to be able to finish your bachelor's degree at the next level. They call these transfer agreements. So if I show up at Greenfield Community College, I understand what I need to take in order for 2 years in order to seamlessly transfer to UMass Amherst and do it in 2 years there. So articulation agreements, transfer agreements, students need to pay attention to. In addition, students have to be very careful about, cost of attendance, financial aid offer, and the difference that the family has to come up with. There are colleges that meet what they say 100% of demonstrated need. If they meet 100% of demonstrated need, and this is the question you're asking admissions officers, do you meet 100% of demonstrated need? Then in theory, what you need to, what financial help you need to be able to go there is offered to you by way of that financial aid award. If it isn't offered to you, you've been gapped. And that's where you have to take out loans to be able to afford your education. And these are the stories that we hear from people who are in a lot of debt because they decided that they were going to take out a great deal amount of loans in order to be able to afford that education. The average debt for a bachelor's degree in this country is $30,000 a year. If you can come in at or under that, you're typically going to be okay in terms of paying that off over time. It's the students that are $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of debt for a bachelor's degree, and they can't get out of that hole. Finally, websites, financial aid websites have something called a tuition calculator, and you could put your data in there and you can understand what potentially you might get in financial assistance from that school, and that should be a part of your organized document as well. The US government makes every college have a net price calculator on their website. What is that output telling you about affordability? Add that as a column on your spreadsheet. And look for local scholarships too.
Yeah, one last question. Is there such a thing as legacy admissions? For example, if you went to UMass and are an alum, and maybe you've donated to UMass, does that help your child get into UMass in the admission process, or is that a fallacy?
There are some colleges and universities that still honor legacies as applicants to those schools, and there are colleges that there are state systems that have gotten away from honoring legacy applicants to those schools. So in Virginia, it does not matter if your grandparent, parent, aunt, uncle, sibling went to that school. Meanwhile, in Connecticut, they were thinking about banning it, and it's still a thing. Harvard still acknowledges those family members that attended when you are applying. The interesting thing is that after the affirmative action ruling in June of 2023, some colleges were like, let's level the playing field by getting rid of it, while others kept it.
Okay, Joe, we're out of time, but I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We've been chatting with Joe Latimer, who's a guidance counselor at Northfield Mount Hermon School. We're going to take a break to acknowledge our underwriters, and we'll be back with more On the Mark with some people who can advise you how to write that college essay and how to film that video that you might be using to submit with your programs. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Dunkin' Donut Shops of Westfield and the Sardinia family. It's nice to know that even as the world changes, Dunkin' Coffee remains the same at 7 convenient locations throughout Westfield.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio 89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Arts Beat. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today, and our program is all about how to get into college. It's something that I hope high school juniors and seniors will take a look at, as well as their parents and grandparents. On the second half hour, we're going to talk about how to write that college essay and how to present yourself to an admissions officer if you're getting lucky enough to go to a college fair and meet one, or an interview. And we've learned that a lot of colleges now accept, as part of the application process, a video. If you're applying to an arts program or a broadcast program, you're asked to submit a video, but other colleges and universities are allowing students to submit a video of a certain designated length in a certain designated format as part of their application process. With us today, Brenda Garton, who is a communications teacher at Western New England University and a former television reporter and anchor, and Maureen Sullivan, who is the owner of Maureen Sullivan Media, which helps individuals and organizations develop their look and their brand. It's good to see both of you today.
It's great to be here.
It's great to see you, Mark.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the college essay. Most kids now apply on a common application, so one essay fits all of the schools that they're applying to, and there may be some prompts or word counts and things like that. But from your perspective as journalists and writers, how do you best present yourself in writing a college essay? Maureen, I'll start with you.
I think that you have to think about what's important to you, and I think you have to be your authentic self. You have to find a topic that I think is personal and possibly universal, and really tell a compelling story.
I couldn't agree with you more, Maureen. It's about being your unique self and what you can offer as an individual, what sets you apart. I hate to say from the competition, but sometimes it can be competitive, certainly getting into colleges and universities. So what unique story do you have to share that sets you apart from others? That's deeply important now more than ever before.
Yeah, I would assume the essay has a word count. Nobody wants a Tolstoy novel like War and Peace. But what elements would you, if you were advising a student, what elements would you want them to talk about in an essay to set them apart?
I think involving much about community service and giving back and what have you done for others. That's an important part now, not only getting into college, but certainly through the job application too, as well. So what are you uniquely doing to better area organizations, nonprofits, charities in your community, in your area? What's important to you? What do you believe in? Those type of topics go over well, not only for a college application, but again, for a job search.
And Maureen, what about the technicalities? I know that people can use things like Grammarly to help them with their punctuation and grammar. And if you have bad grammar or a typo in an essay, that's a point against you that you could never recover. What do you recommend in terms of the technical things people need to think about?
I think it's the most important thing is to write the draft, the first draft, because you need to focus on the topic and getting it written. And then from there, you could use Grammarly or any of those platforms, but I really think that you should have someone edit your essay, somebody who can be objective. It probably isn't going to be one of your parents, but maybe your school counselor, maybe your English teacher, maybe a writing coach. I've helped a couple of students with their essays. One was a really long process because although she was a bright student, she was not a writer. And the other one was a writer and she just wanted some editing done. I think that it's really important to button it up and make sure that a second set of eyes sees it.
I agree. I've worked with a couple of high school juniors and seniors over the years applying and writing essays, and I had one high schooler who actually worked for my company who asked me to edit his essay, and I felt that he wrote some things in it that were much too personal, that I didn't think he should share with an admissions counselor or the public for that matter, because anybody can see that essay that you submit. It goes around the table in an admissions room. And I said, you might regret mentioning certain things, but he was very compassionate in what he wanted to say and decided to do it anyway. And it got him into 9 out of 10 schools. But, you know, we worked through the grammar, and the most important thing was sometimes they don't see what their strong points are, and in chatting with them, you can help bring that out.
I agree. I mean, sometimes overcoming those personal obstacles, depending on the story, like you said, Mark, it depends on how personal one wants to be, but certainly sharing it with those high school guidance counselors. There are so many places students can turn now for help in writing that college essay that is still so important for admissions. And I recently spoke with Chris Weistepek, who's an admissions counselor here at Western New England University, in preparing for this talk with you. And he said the number one area, certainly the college essay and the app and all the experiences and background and volunteer work, organizations students are involved with, but it's also, and we all know this as communication people, it's the communication with that university or college. How often are you reaching out to them? They will track how many times a student has emailed them, has stopped by, has called them. That all goes in that file. And I'm not saying it is going to make the biggest difference, but it may make a difference. And that type of communication, we know in life in general, in business, goes a long way.
The other thing is, I mean, we, the three of us, are out in public all the time and networking. We're all good at it. If a student goes to a college fair, they're going to meet with admissions officers from a variety of schools. How do you best present yourself when you're meeting an admissions counselor so that you leave a great impression? And then they'll be looking for your application down the road.
Again, I believe it's that community. Sorry for my dog barking in the background. I'll hit mute if she goes a little vocal, our golden. But yes, that first impression goes a long way. And in preparing for this, I simply want to cite a source that is from the Institute for Organizational Management. And it says, we've all heard this saying, you never get a second chance, of course, to make that first impression. And it goes on to say, experts say 55% of first impressions are made by what we see, the visual, the nonverbal. 38% is the way you hear, what your voice sounds like, the first words that you share and speak to someone. and 7% are the actual words that you say. So the difference in saying them and what you're saying makes a difference. But those first impressions, again, we always hear you don't have that second chance, and they are so long lasting that we always remember the first time we met someone, the first time we did something. And so those first impressions at those college fairs that are held at high schools or civic centers across the country go a long way. And the admissions counselors at universities keep track of who they meet, what they said, how prepared those students were. And it's certainly, to our other point, of then for the student to do the follow-up, to write the email, to say it was so nice to meet you, Chris Weistepek, at that college fair, and to get that communication line going.
So, Maureen, you counsel people all the time and companies on how to get out there and make that first impression. How does somebody dress to go to a college fair, and how do they introduce themselves?
So Brenda probably knows more than I do about how college students dress these days, but I still think that you need to dress appropriately. You probably don't have to wear a suit, but if you did, that would be impressive. Obviously, you shouldn't wear any t-shirts or graphic designs, and you should make sure you're covered. Just use your best judgment, and if you think you need help, reach out to someone who has style. You want to reflect who you are. You certainly don't want to hide that, but I think that at the same time you need to dress appropriately.
I agree with Maureen 100%. Those first impressions, again, especially for a job interview, the job that you have may not require you to wear a business suit. And we all know at the Fortune 100 companies, people are dressing pretty casual these days. However, that first impression for that first interview, wearing a business suit, if you are on a college campus, of course, you're going to see a lot of students are wearing t-shirts. Maybe they're just coming from the classes, or maybe they're in sports and they'll have their sports jersey on. That was the only time they could make it to the career fair at the, or in high school students, that's the only time they could go. So I think that's understandable if you're on a high school or college campus when those college fairs happen. However, if you come and you take the time to put on that suit, that will be a first impression that will be remembered. And Maureen, you may not remember this, but at least 20 years ago, when you were marketing director at the Springfield Republican newspaper, we had many interns under your tutelage and your mentorship that came from Western New England University. And there was one student who was dynamic, terrific student, think the world of her, A+ student. However, when she was working at your office, it must have been a hot day, and she took off her cami, her sweater that she had on. And I don't know if you remember this, but apparently her shirt under the cami, under the sweater that she removed just there in the office, her shirt was a little too low cut. And it was too low cut and showing some cleavage in the office. And you actually called me and said to talk to that student about what she wears. And again, she was a dynamic student. Do you remember this story?
It's vaguely coming back to me. I don't remember exactly who it was.
And she felt, and I did speak with her, and she came to my faculty office and we had a chit chat about nonverbal communication and body language and attire in the workplace, and she apologized profusely. She simply was warm and right there in the office environment. But people have to be careful. You never know today. And of course, it's relaxed now, and people are wearing casual clothes, and it's a much more different workplace environment. However, some of those attire policies still hold true. So why take a chance?
Yeah, I was going to say, Brenda, you and I counsel and work with a lot of college students who do What Young People Think on this network, and they come on to talk about current events. And Brenda and I work with them before they come on, and we talk about the lighting that they should have behind them and what to wear and all of that. And believe me, from the time that we sit down before the program and the time the program gets taped, wardrobes change radically and backdrops change radically because they realize they got to put their best foot forward.
Let me say, I'm extremely proud of all of our students at Western New England, and they have an excellent reputation in the community for the internship positions and job positions they hold. But every now and then we can get relaxed and not realize sometimes what that can mean when you're in a more professional environment. So it's good to be reminded.
If students are putting together a video, showing, some schools allow it as part of the essay, or if they're applying to an art school or a music school or a theater school, their interviews may be on Zoom now and they're asked to submit a video. And they're very specific about the format that they ask for and the number of minutes. What do you both think is most important in a video, and how do you achieve it?
Being succinct, not having a long video. I think it should be under 3 minutes. Again, the eye contact, even on Zoom, we talk about how the eye contact should be with the camera lens, not looking down here. Stating what you'd like to say in a brief, short video, dressing professionally, representing yourself, avoiding those ums and ahs and so's as much as possible. Not reading it either. Sometimes I've seen students produce videos for jobs and their eyes are over here and you can actually see their eyes going back and forth as if they were reading a script from a screen. So those elements, I think, can help enhance a video.
And Maureen, what do you want to add to that?
I agree, and I also think that it's important to do a couple of takes. You definitely need to review the video. Sometimes we can take a look and realize we're doing things that we didn't know we were doing. And so the next take, we can correct those things. I think, even if you have to do it several times and have someone else take a look and edit it for you, that's important.
And the other thing that people should be aware of their voice on a video, if they're voicing behind it, and the lighting of a video. And also if you're excuse me, doing a performance video with you playing the piano, for example, to apply to a music school, make sure the sound is good, because you want the pretend you're applying to play in a symphony orchestra. They're going to judge you with their ears. Or if it's a theater or dance program that you're applying to, you probably want to do a solo, because you don't want to be judged by your co-star's performance, or if you're a dancer with the rest of the people in the company, because you can't control the quality of what they're going to put onto that video. And as more and more people are applying to arts programs around, the video is a very integral part of whether you'll be accepted or not, because they don't accept the untalented, they accept the people that they feel have potential to really thrive in that environment. Brenda, what about colleges and universities? Does your program require a video for application?
No, they don't require it. In fact, through the Common App, I think the written college essay is still the best way to introduce yourself. That being said, if somebody wanted to enter a media program, an arts program, sending that extra footage, that MP4 or an MP3 for radio would go a long way. Again, with that additional communication to enhance the college app that students have already put forward. Certainly athletes are different. Athletes send videos all the time to the coaches at colleges and universities to show what they can do for their skill level. And you made a good point, not to show many other athletes, but yourself as much as possible for those athletic positions or scholarships that students might seek through sports. In job interviews too, and I'm even looking what I have, you should probably eliminate personal photos. I thought I put them all away as much as possible. Move everything off the screen. Like Maureen and I have a pretty balanced, neutral background, not to have posters. This actually is a picture I put because there is a window there where that painting is. And that's another element, is to not have a window behind you if you're doing or a light that you can see. So being aware of your background, if it's a voiced video, an elevator pitch type college app or a job application on video. And then certainly for the ones that you talked about on arts, music, theater, dance, sports, to make sure you are highlighting yourself as an individual as much as possible.
I helped a young high schooler applying to colleges for sports. And he had put together this fabulous video of him. And oftentimes, I mean, he showed the other members of the team in a move, but he backed it up with this really loud punk rock music. And I said to him, I think you need to change your music. First of all, you're using music that isn't that's licensed. So if this gets shown publicly, you could be in trouble. You're not using it with the musician's permission. And second of all, you've got this hot, throbbing music going on, and it's distracting from what you're trying to say. Maureen and Brenda, what elements do you think should be in a video? Should it be background with music, or should it be background with voice, with audience applause and sound effects, so to speak?
I think, I think that's sort of an individual choice. I agree with you definitely about the music. But if there's some copyright-free music and it's instrumental and it's very soft in the background and it enhances your video, if that's part of the mood you're trying to create, I think that that's okay. I think that any other background noise, unless, as you said, it's other people in a sports situation or musical situation, that's okay. But I think in general, you might want to stay away from extraneous background noise that doesn't enhance the video.
Right, I agree 100%. We have to be careful on those copyright issues regarding especially music. So if it can enhance, if it's free music, if you can use it and it's available to the public, sometimes it can enhance a piece, but not to distract from the message and to certainly distract from the person. And if that music was too loud, I think you are taking away from the message.
Another question for both of you. Brenda, you touched upon it. When you're applying to college, your outside activities, community service is considered very important. Maureen, you have interns all the time. Brenda, you work with young people. How important is that high school internship or job?
I think both of us would say it's extremely important. The interns I have had from Western New England have been phenomenal. And so many of them stay in touch. And they all talk about how rewarding the experience was and how it helped them in job interviews and helped them to get that first job in many, many cases.
Yeah, I'm amazed at how many students go off onto these internships and they certainly become full-time jobs. They even become part-time jobs before they graduate. So they're in the system, they're working with the people, they already know all the programs or format or the culture of that workplace, and they can hit the ground running really at the end of May. As soon as they graduate, they can be hired. And it's interesting that even in high school, students are already, as you mentioned, doing internships in high school. That wasn't a concept back when I was in high school, to have an internship in high school. So those programs are out there, and those students who take advantage of those internships in high school, maybe taking a college course in high school, certainly getting involved in community activities, and making your mark through volunteer work is extremely important. What a lot of students, excuse me, Mark, but I'll just end by saying what a lot of students do is sometimes they intern at a place for one semester and they continue that internship into a second semester if they can, because that just again reinforces their place in that business or organization.
Yeah, I was going to say about 8 years ago, or maybe longer, I mentored a high school student who got a job at the Community Access Television Network in East Longmeadow, and she was doing local news. And she majored in journalism at Hofstra, and then got a job at the Boston Herald, and then moved to WGBH. And she just got a GBH fellowship. She's a political reporter and was sent to the convention and got a fellowship. And she, in high school, knew what she wanted to do, and the internship and the experience she had at East Longmeadow Cable got her into Hofstra and moved her forward. So I truly believe that if there's somebody, if you're in high school and you have an interest and can intern somewhere, it can catapult you into a career, and college just helps you get to that career faster. And Brenda, you've had a lot of students that intern. In fact, I hired one of your students who still works part-time for me, who has a great television career going.
Addie Patterson has been doing great work at Western Mass News. We have a number of students at the local media, behind the scenes, in front of the camera, reporting or shooting and editing. So we do have a great media program. One of our great grads is also the executive editor at The Reminder, Peyton North. So these all started as internships, or these all started as small freelance jobs in writing, or in public relations, or certainly at the TV station. Those internships do turn into jobs. And as soon as everything's coming to young people faster, sooner, quicker. So if a high school student already has an idea of what career they'd like to enter, reach out to not only faculty at area colleges and universities who are teaching in that program, reach out to area professionals like Maureen in public relations or in journalism, or you, Mark, in radio and journalism, or me to talk about past, my involvement at the TV station at 22 News. We all like to help mentor students. And as soon as those high school students can begin networking, the better off they'll be.
Well, I've enjoyed chatting with both of you today, but we've kind of run out of time. I want to thank Brenda Garton from Western New England University and Maureen Sullivan from Maureen Sullivan Media for helping us this half hour, providing some essential information. And in wrapping today's program up, I want to thank Maureen Turner at Northfield Mount Hermon and two students who helped me formulate some of the questions that I wanted to ask. Charlie McKellany and Brian Nguyen, both from Longmeadow High School. Peter Coles has been our chief engineer. I'm Mark Auerbach. We'll see you next week with an all-new edition of On the Mark.
Knuckle down. If you break their necks, if you make them wreck, you can break the hex, so buckle down. Buckle down. Make 'em yell, Winsaki, make 'em yell. You can win, Winsaki, if you give 'em hell. If you don't give in, take it on the chin, you are bound to win if you will only buckle down. If you fight, you'll chuckle at defeat. If you fight, your luck will not retreat. Knuckle down, Winsaki, knuckle down. You can win, Winsaki, if you buckle down. If you mow them down, if you go to town, you can wear the crown if you will only buckle down.